Good evening, everybody. We're going to start the board meeting right now. Could I have a motion to come back from exec session?
So moved. Second.
Motion is second. We're now back from exec session. Can we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. That is the best Pledge of Allegiance we have ever had since last year at this time when there were this many young children in the audience. Welcome, everybody, to our board meeting and our annual Educator of the Year. Okay, could I have a motion for the approval of minutes?
So moved.
Second. Motion is second. Any discussion? Nope. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We now have official minutes. Donna, correspondence.
There's one piece of correspondence from Mr. and Mrs. Kostopoulos regarding how impressed they are with the days of realization.
Great, thank you. And our report of our student representatives. Chris, Amanda.
The Spanish Club is collecting donations for the victims of the earthquake in Ecuador. Student Auxiliary wrote letters to members of the military last week and worked with the Daughters of the Revolution in an attempt to break a world record for most letters written. Today, 20 students participated in NJ State Science Day. Students took one of 5 different science tests. Different tests offered were AP Chem, AP Physics, AP Biology, and Junior Integrated, which covers all non-AP sciences, and I took the test for biology. Ms. Mendenhall's environmental science classes planted trees around the campus of GL to celebrate Arbor Day and replace the trees that were removed earlier this year. 6 of the larger trees were donated by the Berkeley Heights Environmental Commission, and 20 to 30 of the other saplings were planted around the campus as a part of a biodiversity study. Interact members volunteered at the Mother's Day 5K on the 8th, and their trip to Sandy Hook for the beach sweep was a success. Oceanography and AP Biology classes will be going back to Sandy Hook next Wednesday to the New Jersey Sea Grant Consortium to learn about marine life. Students are looking forward to the field trip and are grateful that the BHEF funded it. Art classes will also be going to Sandy Hook next week to build sand sculptures.
Thank you. All right, so student council right now is pretty much all about prom. But we have a lot to report on sports. Actually, for the first time in history, the Governor Livingston varsity baseball team won the Union County tournament. They defeated Scotch Plains Fanwood in a tight game on Sunday, beat them 3-2. This is their 3rd try at the county title in as many years, and they are now preparing for states to bring home another state championship. The varsity golf team is tearing up the course this season on a 9-game winning streak. Their record is now 12-2 after finishing in 3rd place in the Union County tournament. GL faced the number 3 ranked team in New Jersey and number 1 in Union County, which is Oratory Prep, on Monday and won by 2 strokes. They compete in the state sectionals next Monday. So congratulations to Coach Leahy and the team for their great achievements this season. Also congratulations to boys and girls track. Both teams placed 2nd in the conference championships in the Mountain Division. Conference champions included Andrew Aguilera, Kennedy Facey, Leah Safey, and Michelle Almeida. The varsity softball team had a tough loss to Johnson in the Union County tournament. The girls had an outstanding season and were looking to bring home the title. They now stand at 14-8. However, the JV softball team won their 3rd consecutive county championship. Boys lacrosse is 2-17, and girls lacrosse is 13-6.
Great, thanks. Any questions for our student representatives?
Yes, I have one. I didn't have one last time, but I
All
have
right.
one this time.
Bring it
Have
on.
you been able to convince anyone to go to the prom with you yet?
Yes, actually, someone asked me, so.
Oh, okay, Sadie Hawkins, all right.
Yeah.
All right. My question is, how many days left are there of school?
19, I believe.
19.
Not that I'm counting, right?
And do you have it on the countdown timer on your iPhone?
No, I don't. I
Okay.
keep it all here.
Yeah, good. Okay, any other questions? We'll move on. We'll move on to the report of our superintendent.
This is my favorite report of the year, and that is the Educator of the Year celebration. That's the reason why so many of you are here this evening, and it's with great joy that I welcome you to the 2016 Educator of the Year ceremony. I'd like to begin by introducing the President of the Berkeley Heights Board of Education, Doug Reinstein, to share a few words.
Thanks. I really have only 3 quick points tonight. First, Jerry Cristanino, who's a board member who is not here tonight. He is the board member who participates as part of the Educator of the Year, as you'll hear from our lead team, what they do and what's involved. And Jerry represents the board, and really, it's one of those nights where he wishes he could be here. He actually had a prior commitment, so on his behalf, he thanks everybody for being here. Point number 2 is, and you'll hear this a little bit more, is this is the first year where we've added a new what I'll call a performance excellence criteria to the Educator of the Year. So not only were these people selected, but in addition to that, their performance, as will be described by the folks who did it, is yet another criteria. So to me, this year's level of achievement is just that much more distinguished than it has been in the past. And it's been pretty well distinguished in previous years. And my last point is, as I look out into the audience, it's one of those rare nights where I see what I call 4 generations. I look at our Educators of the Year, and I see their own personal children here, young people at that kind of bottom rung. I see some of their students who are in the audience. I see some of their peer teachers and administrators in the audience too, and I see some of their parents here as well. So it's not often where you come to a board meeting and you can see 4 generations of people coming here to honor our educators. So it makes it just a little bit more special. To the very small number of you who come to other Board of Ed meetings the rest of the year, it's nothing like this. So it's a fun night for us. It's an honorable night. It's an achievement focused on our educators. And we as a board certainly offer our congratulations to those that were selected. Judy?
Thank you, Mr. Reinstein. As Mr. Reinstein indicated, actually this process is facilitated by 2 of our district administrators, and it's my pleasure to introduce them, but in addition to introducing them, I want to thank them for the time and energy they devote to making this such a special selection process. And we all do enjoy we call it the Publishers Clearinghouse Day, where we actually get to go and notify those teachers who are the Educators of the Year. So let me first introduce Mrs. Grace Acosta, who is the Assistant Principal at Columbia Middle School.
Thank you, Mrs. Ratner. Good evening. It is with great pleasure that Mrs. Oliveira and I stand before you. As educators, we all look to inspire and to make a difference in the lives of children. We strive to establish a productive classroom, climate, and rapport with students while keeping up with the most current trends and strategies that are most effective for their learning. Tonight, we honor and celebrate educators who have made lasting impressions in the lives of their students, parents, and colleagues. In January, letters were sent and posted inviting parents, students, staff members, and community members to select nominees that they felt best exhibited the qualities of Educator of the Year. In nominating this year's candidates, we sought teachers who demonstrated highly effective engagements with their students, dedicated service to their school and community, and demonstrated significant commitment to their own professional growth as lifelong learners. Additionally, we, the administration, also took a closer look at the evaluation piece and incorporated it into the process when choosing our recipients.
Based on those nominations, a committee comprised of prior Educators of the Year, members of the PTO, and a board member met to complete the silent voting selection process. Ballots were counted, and our 2015-2016 Educators of the Year were selected. In early April, Mrs. Ratner, armed with flowers and balloons, took to the schools to surprise this year's recipients. As she entered classrooms, curious students wanted to know why the superintendent was visiting with gifts. They soon learned that their teachers would be the ones who were awarded the district honor of the 2016 Educator of the Year. Ms. Pogue, Ms. Holtzman, Ms. Bird, Ms. Finkelstein, Ms. Smith, and Ms. Leahy, we thank you for your dedication to the students and families of the Berkeley Heights District. And tonight, we celebrate you. Congratulations.
Thank you, Mrs. Acosta and Mrs. Oliveira. Again, we appreciate all the time and energy you devote to this process. So now's the time you've all been waiting for. And as we begin, I would like to just remind you of the words of John F. Kennedy. He said, "Let us think of education as the means of developing our greatest abilities, because in each of us there is a private hope and dream which, fulfilled, can be translated into a benefit for everyone." Tonight, you're going to meet the outstanding educators in the Berkeley Heights Public Schools, but they are representative of their peers. And I can attest to the fact that all of the teachers in this district do a phenomenal job of helping to mold and move each of our students along in their educational process. Not only are these teachers that we're recognizing this evening help to develop the greatest abilities of our students, but they've encouraged their students to learn, grow, and help to awaken their own expectations. They really have instilled an excitement for learning in each of their children and their students. So at this point, I'd like to invite Mrs. Susan Pogue, the Educator of the Year from Mary K. McMillan Early Childhood Center, to join me. Susan Pogue started her career in the Berkeley Heights Public Schools in September of 2000 as a substitute teacher. She was hired as a classroom special education teacher aide at Hamilton Terrace School in March 2001, and then served as a help teacher at the Early Childhood Center during the 2001-2002 school year. Mrs. Pogue was first employed as a kindergarten teacher at Hamilton Terrace in September of 2002. She taught kindergartners at the school through the 2013-14 school year. Susan has been teaching first grade at the Mary K. McMillan Early Childhood Center for the past 2 years. Mrs. Pogue is a highly effective teacher who applies content area knowledge to instructional practices that connect big ideas to meaningful, independent exploration and practice, providing multiple avenues to success, explained Annie Corley-Hand, principal of the Mary K. McMillan Early Childhood Center. Upon entering her classroom, however, you might think you had entered Kmart after a blue light special, as there will be materials and children taking up all available table and floor space. Her child-centered, project-based classroom is alive with enthusiastic students who are motivated and encouraged to use their talents and gifts to be the best that they can be. Mrs. Pogue earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in elementary education from the State University of New York at Cortland, and she received her Master of Arts degree in early childhood education from Kean University. Well known for her outstanding ability to teach scientific concepts to the youngest of learners, Susan was presented with a Presidential Award in Mathematics and Science Teaching by the National Science Foundation in 2009. During her career at the Early Childhood Center, Mrs. Pogue has served as a member of the Strategic Planning Committee, Science Curriculum Committee, Science Textbook Review Committee, Grammar Committee, and Council on Instruction. She has also been a workshop presenter and an active participant in the annual Berkeley Heights Education Foundation basketball game for many years. One of her nominators has written that Mrs. Pogue's classroom is one of excited learners whose individual needs are met through unique and engaging learning centers, as well as many hands-on activities. Children are encouraged to be creative, and their learning can be demonstrated in a variety of ways. A colleague added that Susan has always been a vocal advocate for students who are out of the mainstream in our community. Through classroom lessons, bulletin boards, and parent visitations, she has supported all students who don't fit the norm, championing and supporting various cultural differences. It is my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Susan Pogue, the Mary K. McMillan Early Childhood Center Educator of the Year.
This is the lowest it's going to go tonight. So, I think I do need these. Good evening. I've always considered teaching one of the most important jobs in our community. I started teaching 14 years ago at the age of 40 and was proud to call myself a teacher. Back then, this evening was to honor Teacher of the Year. And when it was renamed to Educator of the Year, I never gave the change much thought, thinking the two words synonymous. When I was awarded Educator of the Year this April, I couldn't help but wonder, did they change the name for a reason? What was that reason? And that thought was put on the back burner until this past week when I sat down to write this speech. I researched the difference between the two words and discovered the following. According to Webster's dictionary, a teacher is one that teaches, one whose occupation is to instruct. An educator is one skilled in teaching. An educator is a student of the theory and practice of education. And I thought about it. I am hopeful the catalyst for the change was from the realization that there is not just a definition difference between a teacher and an educator, but rather a definitive difference in understanding that teaching isn't just a job to an educator. It is a calling, a passion, a commitment to providing the best educational environment for students each and every day. There is a price to pay for that kind of professional commitment, the price of personal time. So I'd like to take a moment to thank my husband, Russell, and my daughters, Alexandra and Madeline, who have had to share me with the students of Berkeley Heights as I continue to evolve and grow as an educator. I would also like to thank my parents. They set up a home environment that fostered curiosity, wonder, and discussions at the very important family dinner table. I must acknowledge Mary Kay McMillan, who recommended me for my first ever teaching position, saw things in me that I did not yet see in myself, mentored me, and inspired me. And I am grateful to my principal, Annie Corley, for allowing me the freedom to be a professional educator. And of course, I'm always thankful for my students. Thankful for the smiles, the laughs, the stories, the handmade gifts, the words of love and admiration, and apparently unbeknownst to the rest of the world, I have a fantastic singing voice. I have said for years I should be writing down some of the anecdotal stories I have heard within the four walls of the classroom. I could publish a comedic bestseller. During my recent research, I read that part of the difference between educators and teachers is that educators live the lessons they impart every day. For 180 days each school year, I raise my Room 102 classroom family to always try their personal best, question, wonder, observe the beauty in the world, and be an upstander when there is injustice. In Room 102, we appreciate and learn from our mistakes. We understand that our differences do not make us better or worse, just different. So this year, when the students suggested our class slogan be Fun 02, a room full of happiness, I was elated. Learning should be joyful. Today's world moves at a fast pace and children have busy schedules. I remind my students daily that true learning is not a race, but a journey. George Bernard Shaw penned a line that has become an idiom thrown around casually in American society. Those who can, do. Those who can't, teach. I say in response, those who can because they had educators who inspired them along the journey. I am proud to say I am an educator, and prouder to say that I am an educator among educators in Berkeley Heights. Thank you.
It's now my pleasure to introduce Ms. Julie Nelson, President of the Mary Kay McMillan PTO.
On behalf of the PTO at Mary Kay McMillan, we congratulate you on this very well-deserved award. Our students are very, very, very lucky to have you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Thank
Let me take this down.
Can you go downstairs?
Yeah.
May I ask Mrs. Ann Bird to join me, please? Looking for my glasses, they're on my head. Ann Bird is a speech-language specialist at Hughes School. Ann began working in the Berkeley Heights Public Schools as a supplemental speech correctionist during the 1978-79 school year. She was then hired to her first full-time speech position, working with students at Thomas P. Hughes and William Woodruff Schools on September 1st, 1979. Since that time, Mrs. Bird has worked tirelessly with students in grades pre-K through 8 throughout our school district, helping them to develop their speech and language skills. Ann Bird is the kind of teacher that you wish you had as a child, said Jessica Nardi, principal of Thomas P. Hughes School. She has the innate ability to connect with kids and not only effectively help students with their speech and language needs, but she also helps students have an overall positive school experience. Children feel good about themselves when they are with Mrs. Bird, and this helps foster their academic and social growth across their school day. On a personal note, it always brightens my day when Mrs. Bird brings her students to the office to tell her jokes. Ann earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in speech from Douglas College of Rutgers, the State University, and she received her Master of Science degree in speech pathology from Rutgers Graduate School of Education. An active member of a number of speech, language, and hearing associations, Mrs. Bird has helped enlighten her fellow staff members as a workshop presenter, has been a member of the district's wellness committee, and has served as a cooperating professional for college students completing their internships. Also, during the 1994-95 school year, Mrs. Bird was chosen as the Teacher of the Year at William Woodruff School. Her nominators have said that Mrs. Bird has an excellent rapport with her students, and she develops and nurtures a love of learning in them. She develops creative ways to help students accomplish their speech and language goals. While reading books, Mrs. Bird will bring in manipulatives, pictures, or objects to help students understand the language and the context of the story. Ann and her students put forth great effort during these lessons, but the students hardly notice that it is work. Mrs. Bird also communicates effectively with parents, and she is always available to teachers and parents to discuss the progress being made by her students. It is my honor to present Mrs. Ann Bird, Speech Language Specialist at the Thomas P. Hughes School.
Good evening, Board of Education members, Mrs. Ratner, Mr. McKinney, principals and supervisors, teachers, staff, parents, students, and my family. I am honored to be recognized as Educator of the Year from Hughes School. Although I have been teaching for many years, I still wake up with eagerness and passion to do my job and help my students make improvements in their communication skills. In my classroom, I always have the words, "You can do it," as part of a bulletin board. I want my students to always feel successful. I may have to break the learning down into the smallest components in order for them to succeed, which brings me to some of the imagery that happens in my mind. When I begin working with a student, a pendulum comes to mind. Because of their lack of skill in a certain particular area, I picture the pendulum being far to the left, and my job becomes to teach them what they need to know. Practice in a variety of activities, repetition, and exaggeration makes the pendulum swing far to the right. And after much practice in fun and interesting ways, the skills are acquired and the pendulum can rest steadily in the middle, which represents that the communication skills have become a part of their everyday life. Another image that comes to mind as I plan for my students is the pyramid. Each block of the base of that pyramid needs to be securely placed. Rushing a student through his needed learning and practice of new skills will not be beneficial in the long run. because that may cause spaces between the blocks of the base of the pyramid. If there's not a firm, solid foundation of learning, then building upward on that foundation will be difficult. Every child learns differently, and thank goodness for differentiation and making the learning fit the child's head. With a firm foundation of skills, students can begin to move into activities that make more demands on their communication abilities. Getting back to the you can do it idea, my other image that helps me is the traditional bow and arrow target. The bullseye in the middle represents the student's goals, what the student needs to learn. The concentric rings of the target represent where the student is in relation to his goals. Some children are not too many rings away from the bullseye, and other children are several rings away. My job is to establish where that student is on those concentric rings, meet him there, then move him inward towards the bullseye. This is where the idea of breaking the skills into their smallest parts comes into play. Establish where the student is, where he can begin to meet with the most success, and that is where skill development begins. I have to say, I love the creative side of my job. I like to build, design, and create materials for my students. I may never use those materials again, but that's all right, because if I made it for one student and it worked for them, then that's what's important. I like to take commercial games and change the rules to fit my needs. I say that I speechify the game. Now, speechify is in dictionary.com. I just want you to know. But they use it a little differently than I use it. I use speechify as like beautify. You can beautify something. So I take a game and I speechify it. So I tell my students, I had to speechify this game to make it work for us, to make it a meaningful speech activity to fit their needs and interests. I share this recognition of Educator of the Year with all the teachers, paraprofessionals, and staff that I work with. The whole of the school is greater than the sum of its parts. We do not function individually, but we work in harmony to benefit our students. We work together so that our students can confidently say one day, I can do it. Thank you again for this most important recognition.
I would like to introduce Mr. John Foster, PTO President of Hughes.
I just want to say thank you, Mrs. Bird, for teaching our kids, and congratulations on being Educator of the Year. And this is from the Hughes PTO.
Oh, that's beautiful. Thank you so
Thank you.
much. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Kathy, would you come join me, please? This is Catherine Finkelstein. She's a teacher of special education at Woodruff Elementary School. Kathy started her teaching career in her hometown of Hasbrook Heights, working there for 6 years before coming to the Berkeley Heights Public Schools in September of 1991. She has been teaching at William Woodruff School for the past 25 years, having educated students in various settings, including primary perceptually impaired classes, self-contained language and learning disabilities classes, and in her current role as a resource room and in-class support teacher. Mrs. Finkelstein is an exceptional teacher, a rare gem of a person who was given the gift to teach, explained Patricia Gasparini, principal of William Woodruff School. She looks at each day as an opportunity to help her students gain confidence, learn skills, and further acquire new strategies to help them find success. Kathy's ever-present smile, calm manner, and constant encouragement inspire her students to believe, reach, and achieve. Mrs. Finkelstein is invested in her students, their lives, and their interests. She uses this to develop hands-on, high-interest, and motivating lessons that build on success. All of the students, staff, and school community celebrate her passion, creativity, collegial style, and willingness to support all. Kathy earned her Bachelor of Science degree in Special Ed from Trenton State College, now the College of New Jersey. During her years in Berkeley Heights, she has served as a member of the District Special Education Monitoring Committee, Social Studies Curriculum Committee, School Objective Committee, Differentiated Supervision Committee, and as a workshop presenter and summer school teacher. Kathy was chosen as the Teacher of the Year at William Woodruff for the 95-96 school year. One of Mrs. Finkelstein's nominators, a colleague, stated that Kathy dedicates herself to foster the highest level of understanding in her students. She has an excellent rapport with those in her classes, is highly regarded by parents and colleagues, and participates extensively in professional development opportunities. Kathy taught me so much in the early years of my career, and I am still learning from her many years later. She tirelessly searches for methods which can help any and all children learn, and she readily shares those ideas with her peers. I would call Kathy a teacher's teacher. My pleasure to introduce our Teacher of the Year from Woodruff. Kathy.
Sorry, I need these glasses. Good evening. This is truly an honor. I work with an exceptional and supportive staff and a wonderful principal. Unfortunately, the second I realized I was the one being presented with the balloon and the rose, I was consumed by the knowledge that I would have to give this speech. Anyone who knows me knows that I like to fly under the radar and don't like to be the center of attention. 25 years ago, I came to Berkeley Heights. I knew nothing about it. I had just seen a sign for it on Route 22. I knew it was near my house. I was having my first child, and I was 8.5 months pregnant, and Joan London hired me. From the moment I walked into Woodruff School, I knew it was a special place. There was a beautiful banner that the students had made hanging in the office, and a warm smile from Helen Belil. The people who didn't even know me were so encouraging. It was amazing. From the day I started, people have always been there to lend a hand or an ear. My Woodruff family has changed over the years, but the feeling I get when I enter the doors remains the same. Woodruff School is truly a wonderful place. My children, Lindsay and Ryan, have been attending events and parties at Woodruff School before they could even walk. We love Berkeley Heights so much that 15 years ago, we made it our home. My children were fortunate to have had amazing teachers in the Berkeley Heights district. It doesn't seem possible that I've spent more than a quarter of a century teaching. I am truly lucky to have spent so much time doing what I love. Each day, my kids, and I mean my students, but I refer to them as my kids because I spend more time sometimes with them than I do with my own children. They make me smile, they make me laugh. Their energy and enthusiasm is contagious. I love seeing the smile on their faces and their eyes light up when they understand something that was initially difficult. Thank you to my family for always knowing that Sunday night meant I was not available because I was doing my lesson plans for the week, and being always there to help. Thank you again to my students for making my job so much fun. I come to school every day, and I love doing it.
I would like to introduce Mrs. Kelly Sheehan, PTO President from Woodruff.
Thank you. On behalf of the Woodruff PTO, I'm very happy to be here tonight to celebrate the accomplishments. We are very lucky to have such fantastic teachers, so a big congratulations to all of you. Since neither of my kids have had Mrs. Finkelstein as a teacher, I took the opportunity to talk to a few of her students to see what they liked best about her. I heard things like, she's smart, she's kind, she's considerate, She makes us want to learn, but what stuck with me most was each child that I spoke to in their own way said that she never stops believing in her students. And that, to me, was such a special attribute to have. I'm honored to congratulate Mrs. Kathy Finkelstein, teacher, Educator of the Year for the Woodruff School.
Mrs. Holzman, will you join me, please? Own cheering section. Mrs. Gina Holzman is a grade 3 teacher at Mountain Park School, and she has been employed in the Berkeley Heights Public Schools for the past 15 years. She started as a grade 5 teacher at Thomas P. Hughes in September of 2001 and moved to grade 3 at Hughes School before becoming assistant principal at Columbia Middle School in July of 2008. Mrs. Holzman served as the CMS assistant principal for nearly 3 years before returning to the classroom and her current position, third grade teacher at Mountain Park School, in September of 2011. Mrs. Holzman combines the use of the creative aspects of teaching that students enjoy with a very structured and thorough approach, said John Marceau, principal of Mountain Park School. By employing technology, differentiation, and cooperative learning, she is able to teach the whole child. Her annual efforts to obtain grants, which fund special projects and learning opportunities, further enrich her students' educational experiences. In addition, Mrs. Holzman serves as an integral part of the district's K-5 Language Arts Committee, where her knowledge of writing instruction is an extremely valuable asset. Gina earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in English from Douglas College of Rutgers, the State University, and she received a Master of Arts degree in Early Childhood Elementary Education from the Graduate School of Education at Rutgers, as well as a Master of Arts degree in Educational Leadership from Fairleigh Dickinson University. Recognized as the 2006-2007 Teacher of the Year at Hughes School, Mrs. Holzman has served her school and the district as a member of the Council on Instruction, Language Arts Committee, Spelling Committee, Textbook Review Committee, Safety Committee, and Strategic Planning Committee. Earlier in her career, Gina served as a writing club advisor at Hughes School and as an assistant softball coach at Governor Livingston High School. Mrs. Holzman's nominators have described her as an exceptional educator who personifies the best qualities that we look for in individuals that teach in our schools every day. Those who observe her classes have commended her for creating a classroom environment that is welcoming and structured with established routines and expectations for students. Her friendly smile and encouraging comments help foster an atmosphere of support and success. It is my pleasure to introduce Mountain Park's Teacher of the Year, Mrs. Gina Holzman.
Thank you, Mrs. Ratner, Mr. McKinney, Mr. Marceau, members of the board, parents, students, family, and friends for this very special recognition. Kids don't remember what you tried to teach them. They remember what you are. My students know that besides a teacher, I am a learner. They also know that we are at school to learn from each other and grow every day. In the 15 years that I have been fortunate enough to work in Berkeley Heights, I have learned many things. I promise not to name them all, but here are a few. I learned there is no place for high heels in the classroom. There is always someone you can go to at Mountain Park for help and support. Leaders think and talk about solutions. Followers think and talk about problems. Think twice before dressing up or putting too much makeup on, because when you don't, your students will ask you if you're sick. A collaborative team is the best kind of team. When people talk, listen completely. If someone has the stomach bug in your room, no matter how many times you wash your hands, chances are you'll get it. Change is good. Thank you, Columbia, for that. 8 and 9-year-olds deserve to play and participate in after-school activities, and they should have a reasonable amount of homework. There is something to be said about crying in front of your class, whether it's at the end of a read aloud or on the last day of school. You become more human when you do. Making learning fun and relating it to real life changes everything. Every student enjoys a good story about Marty, my notorious miniature dachshund. A math teacher can teach you a lot more than math. Some people can never get enough bacon. Children are honest. When I told my students about tonight and how I had to give a speech, they said, "What kind of an award is that?" Say thank you. Compliment others. We learn from failure, not from success. Telling stories to your class about how awful your third grade teacher was always seems to make you look better. Be confident, but don't brag. You can never be too organized. Teach how to think instead of what to think. When a student calls you mom by accident, it still makes you feel really good. The importance of your Berkeley Heights family, your family, and friends. Communication is key, especially with parents. Everything I am or hope to be, I owe to my mother and father. In the cookies of life, sisters are the chocolate chips. My husband is the bravest and kindest man I know, and our boys, Brian and Sean, are the best gifts we could have ever dreamed of. Finally, you can even be inspired by a bunny. According to Judy Hopps from Zootopia, a movie that my students advised me to see, turns out life's a little bit more complicated than a slogan on a bumper sticker. Real life is messy. We all have limitations. We all make mistakes, which means, hey, glass half full, we all have a lot in common. And the more we try to understand one another, the more exceptional each of us will be. But we have to try. So no matter what kind of person you are, I implore you, try. Try to make the world a better place. Look inside yourself and recognize that change starts with you. Thank you again for this beautiful recognition.
It's my pleasure to introduce Mrs. Mila Trigos, the PTO president from Mountain Park.
On behalf of the Mountain Park Parent-Teacher Organization, families, and students, I would like to present this gift to Mrs. Holtzman to thank her for her wonderful contribution to our school. Thank you for sharing your gifts and talents with us, your exceptional teaching skills, your creativity, and your compassionate interest in your students. Congratulations.
Ashley, you freaked me out. I thought you were up top. So would you come on up? Ms. Ashley Smith is the teacher of French at Columbia Middle School. Ashley is in her 4th year of teaching the French language to students at Columbia Middle School. She arrived in Berkeley Heights after having taught French at Bedminster Township Public Schools for 2 years. Ms. Smith seeks ways to fully immerse her students in the French language. She has gone as far as to ask me to throw away the desks in her classroom and install a sidewalk cafe, said Frank Geiger, principal of Columbia Middle School. In her classroom, students often take the lead, sharing their discoveries, perhaps dressed as Claude Monet, while Ms. Smith conferences with others in the target language. Ms. Smith plants the seeds early, visiting the elementary schools to promote her course of study. A student who completes 3 years of French with Ms. Smith has seen the sights of France through online virtual tours, studied the country's culture, prepared and tasted French food as members of the French Club, and speaks the language with confidence. Ms. Smith earned her Bachelor of Science degree in world language education, French language, French and Francophone studies, applied French, and international studies from the Pennsylvania State University. She is currently pursuing graduate studies in the Master of Arts in Teaching program at the Rutgers Graduate School of Education. Ashley has served as a faculty advisor to the CMS French Club and Student Council during her employment at Columbia. And she co-founded the Ski and Snowboard Club through the Berkeley Heights YMCA, which has proven to be a very popular organization with middle school students. Her nominators wrote that Ms. Smith loves the French language and sharing her excitement for it with her students. She creates a warm, welcoming, and fun environment in her classroom, and she helps to do the same at Columbia Middle School as a whole. Ashley's students write to pen pals in France, send out holiday greetings to their teachers in French, and learn about food, fashion, and culture in French-speaking countries throughout the world. She also takes the time to create an accepting climate in her classroom by teaching students about tolerance. Ms. Smith listens to her students, gets to know them and their interests, learns about what is going on in their lives, and that truly resonates with the girls and boys in her classes. It is an honor to introduce Ms. Ashley Smith, teacher of French and Teacher of the Year at Columbia Middle School.
Thank you, Mrs. Radner, and bonsoir tout le monde. A sincere thank you to everyone here showing their support for not only me, but my fellow Educator of the Year recipients. When I first found out I had to do a speech, I really honestly had no idea what I was going to say, but luckily, working in a building full of educators, advice was readily available. So here's a little bit of the advice that I received. Use a quote. Tell a story. Speak only in French so no one will really know what you're saying at all. And also Mr. Geiger's advice to keep it under 3 minutes. So following the latter, this is going to be about 2.5 minutes before I wrap it up. To heed the advice of a former Teacher of the Year, I would like to quote a Spanish painter, actually, Pablo Picasso. Pablo Picasso once said, "There are painters who transform the sun to a yellow spot, but there are others who, with the help of their art and intelligence, transform a yellow spot into the sun." When Mrs. Ratner and the other administrators walked into my room with flowers and a balloon, I can honestly tell you I had no idea what was going on. When it sunk in, I could hardly believe that a person who has only been teaching 6 years could achieve a recognition such as this. Much like the Picasso quote, I feel that I work with educators who are all artists in their own way, transforming yellow spots into suns each and every day. This supportive environment at Columbia Middle School allows for innovation, creativity, and intelligence to flow continuously. I am honored and incredibly humbled to receive this special recognition this year, but my recognition must also serve as an acknowledgement of the teachers in my building who continue to inspire and motivate me every day. Thank you to my school administration, Mr. Geiger, Ms. Acosta, for your continued support and encouragement. And also thank you to my fabulous colleagues that I am lucky to call my friends and who are there on the good days and the bad ones. And my fiance, Kevin, in the audience, who listens every night over dinner to my endless teaching stories and never gets tired of them. Lastly, I could not conclude these 3 minutes, well, 2.5, without mention of my students who push me not only to be a better teacher, but a better person. I feel privileged to be able to teach you, to watch you grow, and even brave negative 45-degree temperatures with you in another country. For those of you that don't know, we went to Canada on the coldest weekend of the year this year. While I strive to instill in you a love for French, to simply share in the experiences we've had together and to witness your trials and triumphs is enough for me. I knew at the age of 16 that I wanted to be a French teacher, and I have not regretted it a day since. I am fortunate to come to work every day, to be myself, and share what I love. I can only hope as my future in teaching unfolds that I will continue to strive for greatness in this field and continue to be #relatable, as my students told me in a congratulatory card. Thank you again to everyone sitting here who supports the education of the students in this community. And thank you for this very special honor, the reality of which is still sinking in. Thank you.
I'd like to call up Elizabeth Kane to represent the PTO as the Vice President of Columbia Middle School.
On behalf of the Columbia Middle School PTO, I would like to congratulate you on this wonderful honor as Educator of the Year. We appreciate your dedication to the students of Columbia and how you continue to inspire and support them is amazing. Congratulations on this wonderful honor.
Sharon, would you come join me, please? Ms. Sharon Leahy is a teacher of social studies at Governor Livingston and is the Teacher of the Year, Educator of the Year at GL. Sharon Leahy has been teaching social studies at GL for the past 13 years, providing instruction in courses such as Advanced Placement World History, Sociology, World History Honors, and Global Studies. She first arrived in Berkeley Heights Public Schools in 2003 after having worked in the private sector for over 10 years. Sharon Leahy is so much more than just a great educator, said Rob Nixon, principal of GL. The ultimate professional, Ms. Leahy is a top-notch coach and advisor in addition to being a master teacher. Students love to take her class because they know that they will learn in a highly engaging environment. The way Ms. Leahy runs her classroom fosters inquiry. She challenges her students to substantiate their claims and to prove the validity of their opinions to their classmates. The 2010 Teacher of the Year at GL, Ms. Leahy earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in History from Providence College, and she received her Master of Arts degree in Teaching from Fairleigh Dickinson University. She currently serves as the head coach of the Governor Livingston golf team and as assistant coach of the GL swimming team, in addition to being one of the faculty advisors to the school's Interact Club. During her years at GL, Sharon also has been a member of the district's Council on Instruction, Technology Committee, and Strategic Planning Committee, in addition to serving as the National Honor Society advisor. Outside of school, Ms. Leahy's subject area expertise has led to her employment by the College Board as a reader for AP European History examinations, as well as being a contributor of questions for the new AP exam. One of Sharon's nominators for Educator of the Year wrote that Ms. Leahy is the type of teacher who makes it look easy. When you watch her teach, she is in complete command of the classroom. Her lessons are marvelous. They are always clever, well-constructed, student-centered, on point, and rigorous. Although she makes teaching look easy, Sharon is constantly working to improve and looking to incorporate new ideas and practice into her instruction. She will often work with other teachers, both within and outside the Social Studies Department, in order to achieve this goal. She is a credit to her department, GL, and the entire district. It's my pleasure to introduce Ms. Sharon Leahy, Educator of the Year for Governor Livingston High School.
Congratulations to the other Teachers of the Year. I'd like to thank Mrs. Ratner and the Board of Education for honoring me as Educator of the Year. In addition, I'd also like to thank Mr. Nixon, the administration of GL, for their support. Finally, I need to acknowledge the members of the History Department who are equally passionate about history and teaching. I have them to thank for all of their support and collaboration. Success in any classroom is not built in isolation. The most gratifying aspect of teaching is working with the students. I've been privileged to teach amazing students. They inspire me and I admire them. Teaching is uniquely powerful, and in this profession you come to realize the impact you have as a teacher.
When the current seniors were freshmen in my world history class, one group presented on the Maori and required the class to do the haka. From that moment, before every test in the class, they asked to do the haka. When the same students entered my AP European history class as seniors, they again requested that before every test we do the haka together to get psyched up. On the morning of the AP Euro exam, the students gathered in my classroom at lunch one final time, and we did the haka together. For those of you unfamiliar with the haka, it's a ritual tribal dance designed to intimidate your opponent. It's a funny sight to watch students in New Jersey perform this ritual dance. But long after they've forgotten my lessons on the Cold War or Bismarck, my students will remember doing the haka. This ritual, which seems insignificant and immaterial, will be carried forward for the rest of their lives. Another impact is the power of the teachable moment. One night before swim practice, I gave a brief pep talk to a student about his upcoming tryout for the play. I thought nothing of it in my mind, and it was a typical do your best speech. It happened that another student heard my conversation and shared with me later how special she thought my actions were, and she believed my talk was important to his success from the casting. In my mind, I was giving a routine pep talk, but I was humbled, and the second student's comments really drove home for me that a teacher never knows when or on whom our actions will impact. The final impact of teaching is the lasting academic impact on the lives of my students. Just recently, I received an email from a former student who was a senior business major at Bucknell University. In the email, she specifically thanked me for allowing her to broaden her perspectives, explore her capabilities, think critically, creatively, and strategically. This would be a tremendous personal validation for any teacher, but it was much more than that. It was also a confirmation that social studies and history are not only interesting, but they provide the academic and intellectual skills that are critical to the success of our students in college and in life. All three of these examples, from the humorous to the interpersonal to the academic, prove that the most important part of any teacher is not quantifiable. It's the heart of teaching, that it's the personal relationships, and they have the greatest impact, and that make the profession unique and rewarding. Thank you again.
Mrs. Louisa Grossman, President of the GLPTO.
I'm a little bit shorter. Ms. Leahy is described by her students as an outstanding teacher with high standards who motivates and engages her pupils in a creative way. I couldn't have put it better myself. She really is amazing. On behalf of the GLPTO, I would like to congratulate Sharon Leahy on being chosen the 2015-2016 Educator of the Year for Governor Livingston High School.
Now, for those of you who come, you always know that there are a few little stories about the day that we arrive on the Publishers Clearinghouse. You know, kids sometimes think the teacher's getting engaged. It's their birthday. You know, we get all kinds of different things. Sometimes the teacher doesn't realize it's them. They think it's another teacher that's in the room. So that's interesting. But this year was a little unique. We arrived at a school, and I was, said on the schedule the teacher's supposed to be here. Oh, but she's in the other school. She's teaching. So I'm standing in the office, and the teacher comes flying in to get something out of the mailbox. And she goes, she sees the balloon. She goes, "What are you here for?" "Oh, get over with this really quickly." She says, "I have to get back to Woodruff. I need to know who the teacher of the year is." I said, "Okay." She went down to her classroom, and I grabbed the two little second graders who were doing the morning announcements, and we walked into her classroom, and Anne, is this right? She threw herself in the chair, and she's like, "Get out of here. You can't be here for me." I said, "Yes, we are, Anne." So, every year there's always a unique story, and it just goes to show that what a special recognition that people see it as. And I want to congratulate all of our Teachers of the Year again, our Educators of the Year. You do an incredible job with our students, and we are so fortunate that you work in our district. So thank you again. And Mr. Reinstein, I ask that we take a break from our board meeting so that all of us can congratulate our Educators of the Year. Thank you all for joining us.